Wade is guarding Bryant. Artest looking, gets it to Bryant. Bryant dribbling, has to put it up at the buzzer. Banks it in! He banks in the three! And the Lakers win the game!
Good morning, Syndicate members. It's Wednesday. You know that means.
Let's
It's
go.
Winning on Wednesday. We are live from Austin, Texas. Me and my buddy Joe Campert about to bring it down for you. We got a great show as always. Don't we always have a good show? Let's be honest.
Dude, I don't know if we've ever had a bad guest.
No, I'm pretty sure we haven't because we vet them. We know who we're bringing on. We're not bringing on chumps. And real quick, I'd like to take a moment to give a shout out to my partner over here, Joe Campert, for a blazing hot show yesterday on Tuesday Training, man. If you guys missed that, you missed some really good info. I immediately went back, rewatched that episode, then went back and to my Google My Business profile and took some of Victor's tips and lit it up.
Yeah. Well, if any of y'all saw that yesterday, I got lit up. I got lit up because I was like, you know what? I'll go ahead and just show it. Go ahead, pull my stuff up, man. He's like, oh, I've already been running the audit, man, while we've been doing this. And so it was like, man, I was ranking like, oh, I saw the green one. And again, guys, if you hadn't watched that episode yesterday, make sure and go check it out. It's with my good friend, Victor Gonzalez. We had a podcast or a show, kind of a training we did last week. And then we kind of continued it on into Tuesday Training. And he brought some straight up gold when it came to Google My Business and kind of just how to audit your website and really rank. And, you know, I'm like, all right, go ahead, just pull mine up. And I see this huge green one. And I was like, hell yeah, dude. Like, I'm first, baby. He's like, no, that's because it's literally on your office. He's like, if you're not number one on your office, then that's even worse. But everything else was like 27th. But it was so educational. And thank you, Tony. I know you had some stuff going on. So it was a pleasure to run that. Thanks for the shout out. And I would call that probably one of my weekly wins, man. I think that was a blazing hot show. I had a lot of fun doing that. And then really, I mean, had softball last night. And it was funny because Maria bought me new. I have Jordan 1. Everybody, I have Jordan 1 cleats now. So they are super fancy. I showed Tony and them those yesterday, and I got to wear them last night. And I was getting so much shit on the fields. They're like, "Who is this guy?" And I was like, "Not gonna lie, guys. My wife bought them for me last week, and I think she's thinks I'm good at softball." But they were nice, and it was a lot of fun last night. So
yeah,
I was rocking my new
ones. Those shoes are lights out.
Yeah. What's going on with you, man? How was New Orleans?
New Orleans was outstanding. Happy to be back in the office though, because I got a boatload of work to do as always. But New Orleans was great. It was a quick trip. I went down there for the NABIP Capital Conference, which was in New Orleans. NABIP is the National Association of National Association of Benefits and Insurance Professionals. That is a mouthful, man. I really liked when they were just calling themselves NAHU. But you know, we're not all health underwriters necessarily, so they changed it to be a little more all-inclusive or all-encompassing, which is good. But it was a great event, huge turnout. As a matter of fact, the Austin chapter won a bunch of awards while we were at CapCon. We won basically number one group for small, I think medium-sized groups for our growth and our participation. I don't remember all. We won like 3 awards. I don't remember what they all were, but good stuff. And then, if we were going to throw a weekly win down, it happened also. I mean, I would say CapCon, hanging out in New Orleans. But really, it was a compliment that I got while I was sitting there. I was participating on a panel for technology and more importantly, more focused on how technology shaped or changed or impacted the Medicare industry. specifically, which I've certainly done, and I can talk about that for days. But while I was sitting there getting ready for our panel to get started, Mike Smith, the owner of the Brokerage Inc. Here in Texas, I believe he's out of Fort Worth, if I remember correctly, it might be Dallas, but one of those two little towns. And he walks up to me, and if you know Mike Smith, he's not like just some dude. Like, he's the owner of one of the most legendary integrity partnered FMOs that's out there. The dude has been around the industry for a very long time, and he walks up to me and he says, "Hey, I just wanted to tell you that your presentation at Medicare Con on the future of Medicare was absolutely outstanding." He's like, "I couldn't keep up with the notes that I was trying to take. I really appreciate it. I thought you did a fantastic job." And I knew I did a fantastic job, but coming from him, like, that was really cool. Like, that wasn't a short order for Mike Smith to pay me a compliment of that stature. So I really appreciated that coming from him, because truthfully, his knowledge of Medicare and the industry, et cetera, is, I'm pretty smart, but he's beyond my level of knowledge. So for him to give me that kudos felt nice.
I like it. Come on now. Well, and you're talking events, you're talking about technology, right? We're talking about Google My Business and marketing and all that. And literally it's like the perfect segue into really what this show is going to be about today, y'all. So I am super excited. We've had Mitch on one time before. Jason, you guys probably know Jason Cass. He's not able to join us this morning, but his counterpart in Agency Intelligent podcast, his counterpart in indietech sales, this huge event that we're throwing in Indianapolis this year. We're going to cover that. But more importantly, we have Mitch Gibson on the show, and we're going to talk pretty much everything marketing, podcast, and kind of how to get events together if agents are interested in doing that. So thank you, Mitch, for hopping on, man. Appreciate you.
Let's do it, gentlemen. I, as always, appreciate not only what you guys do for the industry and for the syndicate, but also do for me. I think there's a big misconception for people who look at, like, you, Joe, Tony, yourself, and myself as, podcasters, or want to call us influencers or whatever. I don't know. I've never gotten free clothes out of something like the people do on TikTok, but whatever you want to call us, I don't think they understand how. I'm sure. Well, now you make him feel better about himself. Good. But I learned so much from the people we have on the shows. You have on your guys' shows. Selfishly, I love my podcast because I learn more from the guests than probably my audience learns from the guests. So keep doing what you guys are doing. You're making a difference, and that's what this is about, as a change. So happy to be here, and always honored. So,
and I feel the same way, that sometimes it is a selfish interest, because I do learn a lot from the guests that I bring on. And a lot of times I try to target people. Like, I know this guy knows something that I don't know, and I want to get him on my show so I can get it out and I can learn it, and hopefully somebody else can pick up on it too. So
absolutely. Yeah. It's like the whole everybody's heard if you're the smartest one in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Unless it's a poker table.
Well, that's for sure. Damn sure I'm not the smartest one in that table. I can tell you that. I can tell you that. But yeah, let's hop in, man. Let's get at it.
Yeah, go ahead. Let them know. Give us a little 30,000 foot overview. Who's Mitch Gibson, for anybody that maybe hasn't seen your podcast? Give a quick little shout out to the podcast and just who you are, kind of what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my name is Mitch Gibson, obviously. I am a producer, just like probably 90% of you guys that are sitting here listening. Started in the industry about 6 years ago. Didn't know what in the hell I was doing. Found out real quick that it takes more than just working 9 to 5 to be a successful producer. Found that out through a series of podcasts randomly. Mr. Bradley Flowers with the Insurance Guys podcast. And then Bradley, what kind of got me going in this whole entire, influencer podcaster stage of my life was I reached out to Bradley for advice, and agents, if you're listening to this, it's okay to reach out to people for advice. Ask for help. We all share each other's ideas. We all want to help each other. I had not one time run into my competitors that are sitting here locally in my town, because the market is so big. I mean, everybody needs insurance. There's thousands and thousands of people out there. So I reached out to another agent in Mobile, Alabama, and said, "Hey, dude, I need some marketing advice. What do I do?" He advised me to start a local podcast highlighting local businesses. And at the time when I asked him, it made no freaking sense to me why I would do that and waste more time. And then as I sat there and let it sink in the 15-minute conversation, it's like a light bulb popped off in my head and said, "Hey, holy cow, you want to write commercial insurance? You want to write business insurance? Interview businesses. It's a freaking great first step in the door." So I started the Inside Hancock County podcast about 3 years ago. It has slowed down quite a bit, but it's okay. Started that about 3 years ago as a marketing and sales funnel to increase commercial and business leads for myself and the agency. So when I did that, I started posting stuff out there, and Mr. Jason Cass, who's not only one of my biggest mentors, but one of my best friends now, not just in the industry, but in complete life, had me on his show as a guest on the Agency Intelligence podcast. And from there on out, he realized that I could talk on the mic and asked me to guest host the show. I guest hosted the show for 8 weeks. He asked me in proceeds if I want to start my own show. And I'm like, well, what in the hell would I want to start my own show about? There's 92 other podcasts out in the industry. Why would I want to try to, reinvent the wheel? The knowledge is the knowledge is out there, and why does it need to come from me? And I said, there's nothing for young agents. There's really nothing out there that gives young agents a voice, because one, there's like 4% of us that are under the age, or that are considered a young agent, or under the age of 40 years old, 4%. Yeah. So for me to say, I'm going to go ahead and try to tackle that 4% and say, I'm going to give young agents a place where they can come on a show, express their stresses, their madness, maybe at the principal agency owners. And then I'm going to have guys on the show that are going to help resolve those problems for you. I just felt like, for me, and being young, it's hard for a young producer, young agent to try to make a name for himself amongst the big bag dogs out in the world that have been doing it for 25, 35, 40 years. But then I came quick to realize that those guys that have been doing it for 35, 40 years are slowly disintegrating off of the industry. And for me, great opportunity to start. And I said, why not? Right. So I've got the MVP podcast. I've had it for 2 years now. And what it is it's a podcast that, not only influences young agents, but influences those agents that are new in the industry. And the thing for them to understand is, young agents, for you to understand, is it's a process, man. And it's a process. You got to give it time. This is a long game. The insurance game is a long game, not something you're going to get rich quick off of. I mean, you might, but if you do, let me know what that magic equation is, because I'd love to put that in the back pocket. And if you want to be successful, just like the game of baseball, and I've got a baseball theme around the podcast show, Tony, for one reason, baseball is part of my daily life. I played college baseball at Ball State, and the one thing that I have taken away from the sport of baseball is there's not a thing that I don't do every single day where the game of baseball has not been a learning moment of something that I may struggle with. So I look at the game of baseball as a way of life. Things I learn from baseball are things that I learn and use in my day-to-day life in an insurance world as a professional and as a father. That's very important. So the MVP podcast is on the Agency Intelligence Network, podcast network. There's probably 6-7 shows, a different show every day of the week. And those shows are targeting a different audience. So kudos to Jason and the Agency Intelligence team for getting that all established and set up. And I think instead of us all trying to compete against each other, it's like, let's put us all together and all benefit and give the client one place to, or give the listener one place to.
Well, you said it when you said it perfectly, bro. I mean, it's a process, right? And I think, it's a process to do podcasts and stuff like that too, y'all. Like, it's funny, David Carruthers mentioned. So Carruthers was on our show probably, gosh, that was damn near almost a year ago now. But it was back when I was in my old office. I didn't have any lights. My backdrop was like a white wall, basically, right? My camera was shitty. And he goes, dude, you look like you're at a 7-Eleven at 3 a.m. Like,
the back office.
Big oof, Yeah, and his lighting's all perfect. Tony had good lighting. And it's like, I'm just over here at 7-Eleven at 3 a.m. But again, it's the process, right? But I want to stay here, or a lot of people are thinking about getting into podcasting, or when they think about podcasting, or they think about education, but like agent facing, right? So a lot of what me and Tony do, we have 6 shows that are running on a weekly basis in here that is all education based, really for the agent, right? I want to stay with, hey, maybe somebody is good on the mic, right? And they can talk, right? And they're good at maybe hosting something, right? What would you really instruct? Like, go back to the humble beginnings when you started in Hancock County. I think you said it was like, What was that? And kind of like, I know I have Josh Lippincott. I see you on here. He's a new agent with us here at Redwood. And he's got this, he's got a really crisp mic and a good backdrop. Like he would do great on an actual, but he's a newer agent. How could he set something up with maybe these local group, these communities, these business owners? How did you do it when you first started that for the client side?
Yeah. So I guess first off, piece of advice 101, if you're just getting started, don't go drop a $1,400, $1,500 credit card bill on equipment that maybe you might not know how to use. I started my Inside Hancock County podcast, and I did it in person at first because I wanted to do it in person because it was my first step in the door rather than going to the HVAC shop and saying, yeah, can I see Joe Smith, the owner? No, he's actually not. Hey, Joe, are you available? No, I'm in a meeting, right? Fake meetings, just so he doesn't have to talk to somebody trying to door knock him down. But I did it in person, and I had these little $4 a piece clip-on microphones that went into my phone. I use a splitter to go into my phone, put it on a tripod. I use my iPhone and 2 microphones that I bought off Amazon for $8, right?
There you go.
That's how I recorded everything. And it worked. Honestly, that $4 clip-on mic sounded a hell of a lot better than the cheap $60. I don't even remember what the microphone I had at the time. I still don't have massively expensive equipment because it's about the context, right? It's about the context that you're trying to curate. But at the same token, you've got to have some type of goal from the show, right? Are you just doing it to build awareness? Are you doing it as a sales funnel? Are you doing it to promote events? If you're just doing it to do it and you don't have a process of, I interviewed this guy, what do I want from that guy? If you're just interviewing somebody and just for the fun of it, you're wasting your time. And that's the God's honest truth. Don't waste your time doing it. That's another, I guess, rule number 2, it does take time. Okay. It does take time. So if you're going to do it and you're, year 2 in, right? Or you're brand new and you want to start your local podcast, make sure it's not interrupting and interfering with your daily activity, prospecting activity, sales activity, quoting activity, getting involved in the community, whatever that might be. Don't let that interfere, because the second you let the podcast or this microphone take over your life, sales are going to drop immediately for you. And they did for me, and I will guiltily say so, right? But I kept my head on this focused path of, I know I'm going to lose some business, or not lose business, lose opportunities to write new business for a short period of time. But if this podcast works the way that I've set it up to be, right, I'm going to make that business back. Okay. And I think that's the big misconception. People think, oh, just because I have a guest on the show, he's going to let me take a look at his insurance. Well, guess what? I didn't talk a lick about insurance when I was interviewing that local business owner. Right. So if I was interviewing the HVAC shop guy down the street, that HVAC guy is going to do one thing for me. I want him to talk about himself and the business all day long. You're giving him a chance to talk about his business. What business owner, Joe, Tony, who doesn't like talking about their own business?
Right.
We all do, right? We all love talking about our business, and we're all really good at it. So give him the platform to share his business, his struggles, the things that he went through, the adversity, I like to call it, the adversity he faced. Because what do people do when they get on TikTok? They look for those things that make them feel good in their heart. Oh, I've been struggling. I've had a rough couple of weeks. But that one piece of content I just saw on TikTok got me all fired back up to go again, right? Find ways to engage that prospective client is what I looked at that guy as, that prospective client, to share anything about himself. And usually 95% of the time, Joe, after we get off the episode, he'd say, so what do you really do for a living?
What do you do? Right.
Guys like you.
Yeah, it's like, well, matter of fact. Yeah. Yep.
And I know I'm going to go into the marketing piece just a tad bit, right? Because I know you can feel free to stop me.
Real quick before you go to the marketing piece, and this might be what you're considering marketing. I get this a lot from agents. Well, how did you? Let's just you do have the podcast, right? How did you pick that business up? How did you get in front of them? Was it as simple, like maybe kind of go through that, like, hey guys, just go in, and instead of dropping off a card or a pizza, I'm giving them the opportunity to talk about their business. Was it as simple as that, or was there anything else that you were doing to get your foot in the door?
So my first couple episodes, I made sure that I was, and they may not have been prospective clients, right? My first couple episodes were trying to find people in the community that had a good following. Because in order for my podcast to get a good following, I needed the people with the following and people with the contacts in the community to be able to share that out and say, oh, this is a pretty cool thing. I didn't know this existed.
Right.
So that when I did target HVAC contractors or carpentry contractors, and that's what I did, right? That's what I picked a specific niche in a sense.
Okay.
Right. I started to have fun with it towards later on, but I wasn't interviewing people to write personal insurance. If you're interviewing people to write personal insurance, the time on investment and the time spent per hour is not going to match up, and it's just not.
I don't even know. What would you even interview them on either? You know, that's what I'm kind of like.
Yeah. But the people I did interview that were, The people I did interview, though, that were personal clients or that were prospective personal lines people, professional athletes.
Well, there you go.
So I had professional athletes on my show because that's something I have transitioned into doing, writing in some other states like Phoenix, Arizona, and some down in Florida for baseball players, right? I had those guys on because I wanted to get into that niche of writing pro athletes PNC stuff. And it's worked because I had a first round draft pick on. I had my cousin who plays for the Orioles. Who was an all-star hitting coach for the San Francisco Giants. Like those guys for me were big advocates in establishing who Mitch Gibson was. Because believe it or not, they shared on their social medias. Oh, thanks for having me on the show, Mitch. That's going to attract people. And then when my buddy's out at spring training, I go out and golf with him. And the 6 people that we're hanging out with going golfing say, oh, this is the guy that interviewed you in your Lamborghini? I did. I interviewed the guy in his Lamborghini driving down the street. It was cool. Like
that's badass.
I now have all 6 of those guys insured.
Nice.
So that's
that is
got to
awesome.
have a target. You've got to have a target.
That's a perfect segue into the marketing piece, right? Because the podcast is funny. Me and Tony have kind of felt it. And I guess, I don't know, it's a little bit different on the agent side, but I'm thinking as the podcast, like how it has really kind of made you kind of niche down or go into a different route. Like me and Tony when we first started Winning on Wednesday, like this was the first show, right? We were just like, we're just going to go on Facebook Live. Quality was shit, but we just were committed. We're like, we want to hold each other accountable to put content out. And then it's turned into where like now we're business partners in a media company. We don't do any insurance business together yet. But we started a media company together, and now we're doing this. And now we've got the Syndicate Sky Suite tickets, which guys, we're pretty much sold out. So I think we have like 2 left. We're looking to do events, which is really cool. I think this is a great segment because it starts with the podcast. Then you get some marketing, your promotion, right? Getting in front of people. But then there's so much power in getting those people in the room, right? So let's stay with the marketing piece, and then we'll get into the event side of it.
Yeah, and I guess the transition into the marketing side of things, the question I got asked a lot when because once I started the Inside Hancock County podcast and like Bradley shared it on his weekly email blast or whatever, which is how Jason invited me to come on his show. It's the only reason Jason found out who the hell I was from an automated marketing email that Bradley's team puts out for his podcast every week. Says, awesome. Mitch Gibson, if he listened, he executed, and it's working. And that's kind of how it was. Like, if you're going to go to somebody for advice and they put it in your ear and you take time out of their day and you don't go try, at least attempt to execute that advice, you think that guy's ever going to give you advice again?
Probably not.
And you just burned a bridge with one of the most influential people in the marketplace. Not a good idea to do so, right? And he told me before he gave me the Inside Hancock County podcast idea, he had told 5 or 6 other agents that same thing. Not one of them attempted.
Right.
So me just attempting and staying the course with it turned into an opportunity like what we're going to discuss here in a few minutes with the conference that we're putting on as well. But even if that guy that I interviewed in the HVAC contractor, and he didn't ask me, what did you do full time? I now have his contact. I now have, he knows who I am. He knows my face. I'm always going to follow up with a thank you no matter what. Okay. And that's handwritten thank you note. But not only that, I'm going to create a graphic of the episode with his business, video clips, whatever it is. And I'm going to send it to him and say, hey, dude, thanks for having me on the show. Here's 3 of my favorite clips from the episode and a graphic that you can share on Facebook. I would truly appreciate it if you could do those 3 things for me.
Smart.
So you've turned the guest into the marketing person, right? You've turned him into the guy that's going to promote your show for you. And then with that, and he sees the results, you can take the good results and say, dude, you had 4,400 listeners to this podcast. I could have taken it to the next level and realistically went to that HVAC guy and said, hey, that's 4,000 people that you're going to get more than spending your ad in the local Daily Reporter newspaper. Why don't you just sponsor my show for $1,000? And I'll put your logo on every single piece of content that I put on Facebook for the next 12 months. I could have taken it to that. So you can even take it to the next level. But all I cared was to try to get that guy on my books, right?
See that corner down there where it says sponsored? Shout out to our sponsor, Medicare Misty. She's like the most amazing freaking woman out there in the Medicare space, killing it in Chattanooga. Shout out to sponsor Medicare Misty.
Shout out Misty.
Perfect segue.
Shout out Misty. But what it did was it made me feel like I could go not the next day, not 2 days after, not 3 days after, not 4 days after the show, because you want to give him space.
Right.
He just became a hot lead for me. So I now feel comfortable walking into that shop now, okay, and saying, hey, is John here? I want to talk to him about something. He was on my podcast the other day. Hey, John, Mitch Gibson's here. Said something about a pod. Yeah, send him back. Hell of a lot easier than just stepping in and no one knowing who the heck you are. So that's the steps that I took to do that. And once I took it to scale as far, as much as I could, I became super busy with writing insurance, built relationships with mortgage and real estate referral partners. Another guest I had on the show. I've now get probably 75% of my business on a personal line standpoint leads from 6 different mortgage lenders and processors.
So how about this for anybody that's on we're going a little bit back to the podcast side, but I think it's important as far as turning your audience or your guest into the marketer for you, because you're trying to tap into their audience, right? You're trying to tap into their timeline, their following that you don't necessarily have. What are the top, somebody who, again, we're strictly property and casualty here, guys. And I think life and health people could probably find some value in some of these guests, right? But on the P&C side specifically, top 3 guests. Who are the top 3 people that you think you should, or who you've had on your show that have driven the most business? Obviously, I know business owners is one of them, right? We'll just call it small local business owners. Sure. But then what else? Realtors? We're talking, give us a few more there.
I would say I'm going to put the realtors and mortgage brokers in the same category. Because if you find the right one, they're going to use the mortgage broker, right? They're going to use, they use the same mortgage broker over and over again, right? So I interviewed the owner of the real estate brokerage. I knew who the owner of that real estate brokerage was, and I knew who he used as his loan mortgage guy. That mortgage guy did 275 loans last year. Did probably 300 the year before. That's the guy I want, right? I want that guy that's going to trust me and give me consistent referral business. He's one of my centers of influence. That's the guy I want to continuously give me business year in and year out, right? So I'd say mortgage and real estate guys together, those guys have become my best friends now. I'm just being dead ass honest. Those guys have become my best friends.
One of them I grew up with.
Isn't that hilarious? Isn't that hilarious?
I was like, wait, Levi, how do you know Mitch? I was like, I grew up with Levi, and he sends Mitch all the business. It's funny. It's like, damn, Levi. But all that to say, literally, that is the power of what Mitch has done, is that I grew up with the dude who is freaking a real estate guy who is literally selling like my family's houses. Guess where the insurance goes? To Mitch, right? The local guy who freaking kicked it off. I love that dude. I'm not even upset. I always give Levi a hard time, but it's like, well, obviously you're doing a good job. So keep going on that. That's cool. Who else?
I think the reason, and I'm going to go back to this in just a second because it's going to go great into, I think, lead way into our next topic. Mortgage real estate guys, you're small business people, right? Mm-hmm. So you're small business people. I would say the next one is your community leaders.
Okay.
If you're depending on where you're focusing, right? If you're going to be niche focusing on your community, and I think you don't take it bigger than that. I attempted to take it to inside Indiana. Not a good idea. Because the power of your community and the power of the people that you do business with on a daily basis, and if you're a local agent somewhere, you better be involved somewhere. If you're not involved, you don't sit on a board, you don't, go sponsor a softball team and go shred it in your Jordan 1s. You need to get involved in the community. Because
I've got my last 2 employees off of softball.
That's hilarious, though. It works. Yeah. I mean, the things like that work. Your community makes who you are. So real estate mortgage guys, your small business, even your manufacturer. I mean, you can even be big middle market people in your town. But then your centers of it, your local community leaders, the mayors, your economic development people, your healthcare people. Those guys are important because they got a good following. And they really don't know how to use content. So if you can just put together a halfway decent piece of content, they're going to think it's gold. And then, like you said, you could even start a little media company. Now you just start doing content for all these guests that you just had on the show because you provided a great service. But you talked about Levi and talked about the process. And I think this translates into where we're going, whether that's on a marketing standpoint or why we're even having events and shows and whatever it is. Everything that you guys do for this show has a process. And if the quickest way that you can get the process, or the quicker you can get that process completed or that step completed, the more work you can provide and you can get done, the more people you can help, the more people you can touch. That's what I have done with my mortgage and real estate people. And Joe talked about Levi, a guy he grew up with. The reason why I get that business is because I can get a quote back to my mortgage real estate referral partner within 15 minutes and not even having to lift a finger. Meaning what? They know what that estimated monthly mortgage payment's going to be. They can get to their client, get to the closing table quicker, give me the next piece of business. The quicker you can get the mortgage and real estate guy to move on to the next transaction quicker,
right,
the better. And the number one thing that stops a loan from closing, believe it or not, is a pending certificate of insurance or an invoice.
Right.
And it's usually from the agent's lack of work, because that's just a $1,000 homeowner's policy. Well, I wrote 250 of the Sons of Guns last year. What do you mean? That's $250,000 of premium. What are we waiting
for 15
on
minutes of work per, right?
You know what I'm saying? So for me to look at that, it's you got to master your process. You have to master the process no matter what you're doing, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a sales, or whether it's a marketing campaign that you're doing, trying to target mortgage and real estate referral partners. But you've got to add value, and you've got to be able to back that value up. If I said you'll have a quote back in 15 minutes and it's 2 days later, I'm probably not going to get the next opportunity.
Well, and how much have you interrupted their process in that? I think that's so gold. A lot of agents don't. Our process is you get quotes back within 48 hours, right? A lot of agents have that where it's like, you set that time expectation, but then it's like, dude, you have a realtor waiting for 2 days. Like, they're going to go on, hell, they'll go online. They'll go hit up Hippo. They'll find another way to get it, because otherwise they won't. I mean, it's holding them up. And then it's like, well, if that happens with 5 deals right now, they're going to go find something else. They're going to go find something quicker. And I love that you said that, because it really is. It's speed to contact, right? It's speed to contact to get them in the door. But then it's also, once you get them in the door, it's speed to close. Like, you've got to be fast on these things. It's so good.
And
hold on real quick too. We have a couple questions for you, Mitch. So I just wanted to hit those before we get going too much further. So this goes back to the business owners, I believe, or just really the people kind of that you're interviewing and stuff like that, having on the show. Have you found that being a customer of theirs makes it easier for you to break down the initial wall? Or is it more of, hey, I'm just a part of the community and you're getting your foot in the door? How are you?
I mean, yeah, it for sure helps. I mean, if you got a client, that means if you've got a current customer, unless you were just gifted that client, through another book of business or someone that left the agency, you should have at least already talked to that client. And if you make contact with one person, right, and that's a prospective client, you should, if you're doing the right things, you should be able to get what you want from that without even having them on the show in general, right? But half the battle is getting in front of them at the right place at the right time.
Well, and I think he's saying if you're a customer of theirs, like, do you use the HVAC shop before, or have you ever had any of those instances where it's like, hey, I've gone and bought stuff from this person before, it really wasn't part of that process?
I've never thought about that, to be honest with you. I mean, I obviously feel like I have the upper hand if I have used their services,
right.
Like the HVAC guy, there's just not enough things that I guess have needed. I mean, I don't own my house. I rent it for many reasons. One, I don't have to worry about paying for the HVAC. I don't have to worry about doing all this other stuff, and I'm barely ever home to begin with, right? But if you were a client of somebody else's, that's a contractor, HVAC, boutique owner, absolutely, it's going to help initiate that, breaking down that wall a lot quicker. And I would say build a prospects list of those people that first. I would say avoid family maybe to begin with, because that can really get you into some situations 2 or 3 years down the road that you're like, shit, I wish I didn't insure my dad. He's calling me to do this. Then Susie, my aunt, called because she wants her payment backed up 10 days. So it becomes a stressful situation, right? But I think if they're friends or people that, you do business that have provided a service to you, that you've paid for a service, I'd put them on top of my list. I would.
Yeah. You already have a leg in the door if you're their customer, right?
Bingo.
They should definitely be at the top of the priority list, if assuming that what they have is valuable and interesting to come back around.
Correct. What's up, Ryan?
You see that second? So Mitch, when you interviewed the realtor, mortgage loan officer, did you do that in person? Or would you share the link to the call? You said he doesn't remember that one. Do you know if you have that one recorded? Yep.
Yeah, I can send you a link on that. I did the realtor one in person. And to be completely honest with you, and because of some things that he said, I never released the mortgage brokers, and that's the power of the podcast. Guess what? All you gotta do is interview the dude. If it doesn't go out, it doesn't go out. But there were some pretty funny things. When I interviewed the mortgage guy, we had became really close friends when I interviewed him. We interviewed in his garage. At the time, he wasn't a very, out front speaking person. He was pretty quiet, did his thing behind closed doors, whatever it might be. So he was a little bit uncomfortable because it was kind of like the first time I ever met him in person. But he said some pretty comical stuff that I just didn't felt the need that it should have been put out. But that moment itself is the reason that made me and his relationship the way that it was, even though it never went out to market. But but I knew it wasn't like I was stressed.
He's not in this group, so he doesn't see this podcast seeing that you said that you didn't release that podcast.
You didn't hear that, Jake. Didn't hear that, Jake. But yeah, he knew that, and that's the powerful thing of the podcast, man. It is if it's shitty, you don't have to release it, but you still can build a relationship and say, hey, let's hop on this again. It didn't turn out right. It didn't turn out well. I would prefer, if you're going to meet with those mortgage people, do it in person. Don't get the guys on webcam and especially if they're local. Don't get them on webcam, and go meet the dudes. Go send them a nice email, invite them on the show. Say, hey, I want to do this in person. Obviously, if time obligates, doesn't work, but you need to make sure that you get in contact with the guy face to face so that you can see what type of energy you've got, right? I guess it depends on how you are as a human being, how you are as a person. If you're not a very communicative guy, I'm one that has a lot of energy. I bring energy.
You probably don't have a podcast. You're not communicating. I don't know.
Let's be true.
I don't know if you guys will be doing this.
You probably don't have a good podcast.
Work on it.
But yeah, hopefully that answered your question, Rob. I hope that answered your question.
That's good. That's good. Well, so again, you're talking about the power of the podcast, right? And again, what it has really propelled me and Tony into, as far as the media company side of things, as far as Tony, I want you to kind of talk a little bit about just Invictus and just kind of again spotlight some of that, because obviously you guys have that coming up in the next couple of weeks. But just what that conference is, and the work that's kind of been put into it. But I think it's come from this kind of social media marketing podcast type of funnel where people, it's like, well, hey, now we've got this phone, we've got especially syndicate, right? Like I want to do a syndicate retreat, right? And you guys know, like if anybody knows Joe, because the events that I go to, it's like
retreat's a loose word on that.
I say retreat, and it's like, no, it's actually, we're looking at doing just a huge party. Like you just have to show up, and then it's
drink.
Exactly. But let's segment into that. Just really how this, we'll call it just social media awareness, community, just awareness kind of has pushed us into like more in-person type events. And Mitch, I'll have you kind of close it out with indietech and everything. But Merwin, just kind of take it away with a little bit of just kind of what you've gone through. Anybody that's looking to put on an event, I feel like this probably can be similar to seminars and other things. Now, this is obviously at a way larger scale, for these bigger conferences, but just kind of break some of that down.
I don't know that Invictus necessarily came from podcasting, right? The attention that podcasting created for me and some of the people involved kind of put it on. I would say the Invictus event was spurred on from a need that was already created from that whole funnel, right? Okay. You got people doing podcasts, creating events. You got Cody out there doing his thing, right? And that's kind of where that whole thing, that's my ground zero, is Cody Askins getting on his podcast, getting in his events. That whole movement kind of started. And then we realized the need to be doing it in Spanish, because we found out that just from being in the marketplace, working in the Hispanic market, we realized pretty quickly that the Hispanic consumer is outnumbering the agents at a grotesque rate, and they're basically getting left behind. So if that's true, then that means that there's an enormous opportunity for Spanish-speaking agents to improve their marketplace, but also we need more Spanish-speaking agents in the business, period. Right. So ultimately, Invictus was, I think, a necessity, right, that the marketplace was demanding. And I'm one of those guys that sell the market what it wants, don't argue with it kind of thing, right? If the market's asking for and it's demanding, hey, we want a Spanish event, give them a Spanish event. Now, that's there's a few things that we had to get into place to help try to drive that wave. We had to get the Facebook group running. We had to start getting people on camera talking about it and promote it. And I copied and pasted what successful people doing events have already done before me. Find out if somebody has what you want, go do what they're doing and you'll get what they have.
Say it one more time for the people in the back, Tony.
Yeah, no kidding. If somebody has what you want, go do what they're doing and you'll get what they have. So there's nothing wrong with ethically plagiarizing from people as far as their ideas, not their content verbatim. Obviously, go out and create your own, but their idea, their concept, their process is what you need to be plagiarizing. And so that's pretty much exactly what I did when I looked at kind of how Cody promotes his events. I was like, okay, so he does this and this, and like, well, we're going to do all of those things and get this event going. And it's been a little slow coming, but it's picked up speed quick in the last couple of weeks. And we're going to have a packed house for the event. If you're a Spanish-speaking agent and you want to come hang out with a bunch of Spanish-speaking agents in the bilingual space, get your butt to San Antonio on July 12th, because we're going to have a kick-ass event, I promise you. If at minimum, you're going to be well fed from the knowledge that's coming off the stage and the breakouts, and then certainly the
I've
food.
seen the menu. I've seen the menu. It's bonkers.
So it's going to be a solid event. But yeah, and then going through that's a whole nother process in itself. Learning how.
What was the hardest part? What was the hardest part? I know there's a lot of moving pieces to that. What was the most challenging of really getting it? Hey, you know what? This thing, like, we're getting this thing up off the ground. What was if you could just get one, like, what would be, or maybe one or two of like, man, this shit right here, you need to look out for this if you're looking at doing something at this scale. Okay, anything that comes to mind?
The hardest part doesn't really fit in that, because the initial hardest part was finding the group that was committed to launching it, right? Which took me a while to whittle that group down, and then found my partners. But I would say the real thing that you want to really look out for is learn to get really good at reading hotel contracts, and don't be afraid to negotiate them. Those are a couple of lessons that we've learned the hard way, that we maybe could have negotiated our hotel contract a little better. And the truth is, if you throw an event for the first time, especially if you're throwing a large scale event, you're probably going to lose money the first show. It's just how it is. If you can break even, you're probably winning in that capacity. Right. But if you can learn to be really, really savvy when it comes to negotiating your hotel contract for what you need, the room space, the food, who you can use for audio, video, all of those little details, pay very close attention to them, because those are the things that can ultimately come back and bite you in the butt to create problems, and then ultimately just reduce or increase your costs and reduce your spread. Right. So that's something that we've learned kind of the hard way. But I'm excited for the event, dude. I can't wait. We've got everything nailed down. We got a few final little touches to finish up. Joey Yak's coming in town his team's coming in town to help run all the AV for us. So it's going to be lights out. Can't wait.
When is that, Tony?
That is July 12th through the 14th at the Omni Rio de la Manchon in San Antonio, Texas. It's right on the Riverwalk.
Literally on the Riverwalk. It's beautiful.
Gorgeous hotel.
Yeah, that's exciting. Guys, I will be there. I will not be on stage presenting, though. Sorry, it's not my type of event. I barely speak a lick of English, or of English too, right?
Yeah, you don't speak English very well either.
That's some jargon stuff. But no, it is. I'm excited for you, man. It's gonna be good. I'm gonna be running around. Guys, you can just go to the invictusconference.com. Okay, you can check out tickets there. You can either if you're local, you can get your tickets and just come. You'll be fed. We're gonna have parties and stuff like that. But then also, if you're coming in from out of town, just book your room at the Omni. It's the 2 nights at the Omni, and you get the tickets for free. So and we have a syndicate. If you're coming in, if you're local, use discount code syndicate, and you get 30% off your tickets as well. So multiple ways to get there. More than freaking feasible financially wise. And so I'd love to see all y'all out there. And so kind of segueing from that, Mitch also has an event that I'm a part of as well, and we'll be attending in August. And I'm excited for that one. And Mitch, kind of just take some time to highlight what that one is. Obviously, it's a little bit different than the first ever Spanish speaking event, but it is definitely, it's one of its first, not maybe the first, but one of the first in kind of what you guys are trying to do in that space. And I know how Jason, like his events, it's not just go to, IndieCon, right? Or IndieTech Con, where it's like just all this freaking, whatever. It is going to be kind of that more tight knit networking, really, able to help agents level up when it comes to that type of stuff. So break it down. Just what is it? And then maybe kind of talk a little bit about some of the same stuff Tony was. Like, what were some of your challenges? What were some things that, hey, you should look out for, those types?
Yeah, I guess to kind of start off this idea, and I think everything starts with an idea, right? Cass and I were down at the Applied Net conference in September, October, down in Nashville, Tennessee, which was also IAOA conference. I followed right by that.
Innovation. Okay,
yep,
got it.
Yep. So we were down there for 4 days. Applied to invite us down there, kind of realistically, just to kind of interview people and kind of be flies on the wall. And I tell you what, dude. I have never seen a production like that ever in my life. It kind of first makes you realize, wow, there's a lot of freaking money in this industry. But also too, we were both super engaged, right? We were super, super engaged. They had these little breakout sessions and whatnot. Well, to kind of fast forward that the first night, after the first or second night, we were sitting up in the hotel room, and I've wanted, you talk about turning a podcast or whatever into an events and marketing and whatnot. Since I've had the MVP podcast going for quite some time, there's always these mastermind groups of these guys that have been in the industry for 25, 30 years. I'm like, this is a great way to do like a 50 to 70 person young agent mastermind. So I told him I wanted to kind of start building that. So we sit there, pen and paper, actually have the notebook right here that we kind of started doing some notes on, which transitioned into him, us talking about, I wanted to have a segment about how to use technology. Even if you don't own the agency, how can you go buy that? How can you go about presenting maybe the technology to your principal owners? Because that's the thing that I dealt with as a young agent, not owning the agency. I had to somehow persuade my agency owners, the principals, why we needed this piece of technology and how it was going to work. You take that to them 90% of the time. I say, man, we don't need that technology. We've been doing the same thing for 25 years and we're still doing okay. Well, guess what? If you're not adapting and adjusting to technology now, you're not going to win. You will be ran over and ran through. So when I sparked the question, the conversation, said, hey, Jason, I want to talk about technology somehow and do some automation classes. It sparked up him saying, let's take this to a bigger scale. Right. And that's a typical Jason Cass thing to do. And I'm like, well, let's think of a creative way to do it. Right. The issue is we got all this technology, but no one knows how in the hell to use it. Or no one wants to know how to use it, or it takes too much time to learn how to use it, or they've got this agency management system, but this CRM doesn't talk to them, and this loss runs provider doesn't provide any of the loss runs for me. Like you need to, there was one thing that needed to happen. We need to get all these agents in one place, and show them how to not only use the technology, but how to make the technologies talk to each other, how it can benefit.
Yep.
Show them that there's 76 different types of CRMs that they can use. Here's what we did. We took that thought and idea and created the indietech showcase experience, right? Everything we do in our lives with our customers, with our podcast, it's all an experience, right? Just like the mortgage broker process. It's a good customer experience for their customer that ends up being my customer, right? It's an experience. So what we've done is we imagine like a big oval, right? Imagine the Indianapolis Motor Speedway track. From we've narrowed it down to 5 different categories, from prospecting to managing managing leads to, I forget how we specifically labeled them out, but the customer journey is what we call this thing, right? So there's 5 steps of the customer journey. The last one being how to continue to maintain those clients, right? How to maintain that, build those relationships and maintain those relationships through the use of technology and automation. So if the first thing comes to mind is I want to figure out how I can integrate my CRM with my agency management system and how I can Canopy Connect with both of those, right? How to build that automation process. You can bring your laptop and literally figure out how to do that and leave the conference with that already built in.
With it done.
It done.
Good.
It's not, and it's the key factor of this is it's not a trade show. It is a little bit of a trade show, but each one of those vendors is going to be on a demo stage, doing a 30-minute demo of the product. And on top of that, after they get with the demo, there's going to be educational tracks or paths that they can go out to one of the other breakout session rooms and find out what piece of technology they can connect with that. And they can sit down with someone and build it out, right? So we've eliminated the worry of, I don't know how to use the technology. Let's teach the technology. I don't know how to integrate it. Let's integrate it for them and show them how to integrate it. Because like I said, if you're not adjusting and adapting to the technology now, you're going to lose in the marketplace. So outside of that, I don't know if everybody knows Ryan Hanley or not. Ryan Hanley, big influencer, somebody that when Ryan talks, I listen. I think everyone else listens, kind of like you guys.
One of the OG insurance podcasters, bro. Yeah.
One of the OGs. He'll be speaking, and then our big keynote speaker is a guy by the name of Jim Harris. Jim Harris is an international technology expert. I know he spoke at a couple different Tesla events. The guy knows what he is talking about, and he'll be the talk of the conference. And that's just the flat out God's honest truth. So outside of those two guys, there's food every single day. We're going to feature breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's going to be here at Indianapolis, Indiana, August 29th, 30th, and 31st. JW Marriott, the Marriott Hotel. It's all connected into one area. So we did indietech Showcase Experience in Indianapolis. And the cherry on the top for me, I get to have my little 70 agents Indy sales invite only, quote unquote, right? Indy sales 70 agents only sales training class on August 29th and 30th in conjunction with the showcase. If you buy a ticket, it's $399 for a young agent. If you buy a ticket for $399 and come to Indy sales where you can learn how to build your own process, you should be able to leave there. If you don't have a process or you've got some loopholes in your process, you will be leaving that conference with a process to go sell insurance that following Monday. That's what's going to happen. Not only that, we're going to find a mentor and team you up with a mentor, because mentors are huge in young agents' lives. If you don't have a mentor, one of the big dogs maybe, we're going to place you with a mentor. So if you go and it's $399 for a young agent, if you pay that $399, you get to go to the indietech Showcase Experience, the trade show, and all the other events that week with that ticket price. So that $399 is $200 cheaper than the agent price. If you're 40 and younger or been in the business for less than 5 years, I know I said 3 years earlier, but less than 5 years, buy a ticket. Let's figure out a way to get your sales process moving and growing and going smoothly.
Love that, dude. That's really good ideas.
Talks, man. Going to be whiteboard talk. So if you're interested, holler. I know I talked to Joe a couple days ago about potentially putting together some type of promo code for you guys as well. Anybody in the syndicate. And like I said, I'm going to be coming to some of the syndicate stuff that they're starting to put on as well. So look out for that collaboration and how we can get you guys there. Maybe $100 off or something like that. We'll figure that out as the time goes. But that's a little bit of indietech. If you want more info, the easiest way is go to indietech2023.com and you're off to the races, baby.
Dude, I've had a blast on this show, man.
Absolutely.
This has been a lot of fun.
You said it's an experience, right? And certainly a good event should be an experience, but that made me think of something a little bit different. How do we, as leaders in the insurance industry, if you will, how do we improve the agent experience of new agents to help generate more success or attract more agents to come into our business in the right channel?
Wow, that's a phenomenal question. If you want me to be completely transparent, I think
no, please don't. Please muddy it up and lie.
I think the big misconception is none of what the outside perspective of what we do as agents, whether it's life, health, or whether it's P&C, the outside perspective of what we do as agents is very misconceived. Like, I'm not Jake from State Farm. That's exactly how I looked at it. I don't know if you had your little idea of what the insurance industry was or what an agent was before you actually got into it. And I think a lot of us, probably 50% of us, can feel the same way I do when I'm saying this. It's not at all what it looks like. And I think the more that we can be genuine and authentic as maybe even influencers, you want to call us, or podcasters, is not put something out that's going to be misconceiving of what you do here in this industry. And you're right, Brian. People have no clue. And that's the issue with young, the younger agent or age group, right? I don't know what you even consider millennial age group or what. It doesn't matter to me. If you're new or if you're young, don't be scared by what you think it looks like, because it does not look and is not anything like it. Because it is one hell of an experience. It really is. And it's rewarding. I mean, it's super rewarding. It's not a get rich quick thing. Play the long game, and just give it a try. So hopefully that answered your question.
Not well said, and I think the answer honestly is that simple: is just represent the industry with transparency and authenticity, right? We have to find a way to oust the shady recruiting tactics that are out there that do put that bad stain on the business a little bit, because I think that's where most of it comes from. So yeah, no, well said, and I appreciate you saying that. The only other question I really had for you was, you mentioned that your MVP podcast was based on baseball, kind of baseball themed a little bit.
Yes, sir.
Right. And obviously that's because you come from baseball. You played baseball. What position did you play?
So I was a two-way player. So I pitched and played middle infield at Ball State, but I don't consider myself a two-way, because a two-way player does one thing when he plays the infield: he hits. I wasn't a Division I hitter. My gift was my arm and my defense. So I pitched my freshman, sophomore, and junior year. I played probably 20 innings infield those 3 years. So for me, I could hit, but to hit at that Division I level, at that level, is a head over heels different than D2, NAIA, JUCO, D3. And it goes hand in hand, I guess, with the same thing of what we do as insurance. If you want to be a 5-star guy, I think that's how you look at it. You want to go play a college sport, or do you want to go play a professional sport? Do you want to be a minor leaguer your whole life, or do you want to get to the freaking big leagues, right? That takes a 3, 4, or 4 or 5 tool player, not a 1 or 2 tool player. You don't see 1 or 2 tool players in the big leagues. And look at the De La Cruz guy for the Cincinnati Reds. I mean, that dude, since he stepped on the field with the Reds, his first 13 games, they won all 13 games. Because he brings an energy. He's a 5-tool player, and it's amazing what a 5-tool player can do to your business and to your organization. Guess what? Pro baseball is a business.
Well, you see what Ohtani did last night. I think it was. I think that's how you say it. He's pitched pretty much the whole game, and then also hit 2 home. He's the first to ever be a starting pitcher and hit 2 home runs in the first game or something like that. And I'm like, dude, and it's he's a pitcher, right? Typically, and that dude cranks those things freaking over the fence, bro. It's crazy. Yep.
He leads the MLB in 3 defense or offensive categories, and he leads the MLB in 3 pitching categories.
What a unit. Ridiculous. Yeah, I'll take him on my team. Right.
But yeah, and you real quick, you ask about one thing about the conference, not negative thing, but I know I'm probably taking up too much time.
No, you're good. You're good.
Struggle. Don't think you can do it all. If you want to put an event on, don't think you could do it all, right? We created a steering committee, believe it or not. We created a steering committee for this whole conference. There's nobody over the age of 40 on the steering committee. Right? Because of 2 things. I want to we're involving young agents. I want young agents to be involved, not the guy that's been doing it for 25 years, right? So we've got a good group of steering committee group that's built up of younger people, because we're I want them to know how this works. I want them to learn. I want them to meet people. I want them to meet the guys, the vendors, right? Those are the people I want to get people involved. So get a good, solid steering committee. Don't think you can do it all yourself, because you won't. And you'll be so stressed out and you'll be so mad that you did the event, you won't want to do it again. That's all I got.
Good, man. I like that.
Being a baseball geek, you know who Wally Pipp is, right?
Come on now.
Right. Come on. Just checking.
Maybe
Tony was about we'll have to get on camera and talk about that sometime.
I would love that. I would love nothing more.
That's a great lesson.
Yeah. It's good, man. Well, hey, it's like what Tony has done with his conference, what Mitch has done, right? And like what he's talking about with the steering committee, y'all. If you want to run fast, do it alone, right? But if you want to run far, you do it with freaking other people, man. So thank you, Mitch, dude. I appreciate you being on the show, man. Real quick, how can people, if they want to reach out, they want to touch base, pick your brain? Obviously, guys, he's on Facebook. How can they hit you up? What's best?
Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, the whole 9 yards. I try to stay off of the messaging. I got ADHD, so I've really got a time management and time block very good. It's like from noon to 3 p.m. my phone is on D&D, right? But for myself, if you want to get in contact with me the quickest way, literally just visit my website, mitchgibson.com, and hit the contact tab. You can book an appointment. My email and all that jazz is in there as well. Plus you can find all of the podcasts in the blog section. Any podcast you've done. Just started a new segment with Danny Lawrence. Danny works for a company called Wonderwrite. They're a application an automated application company. Wonderate's phenomenal. He started something called Talking Tech. And the reason I want to do that is, like, if we're going to have tech show, we're going to, I'm going to promote and talk technology and whatnot. Why not have a tech guy, young tech guy, come in and interview other technology companies, right? Indietech or independent or insure tech companies. So blog section, you'll find all of those episodes as well. But I appreciate you, gentlemen. Keep shredding, keep doing what you're supposed to be doing. And I'll see you both before too long.
Yeah, man, it's good to see you back on the show. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Definitely, man. And always thanks to you guys for tuning in. We are here every Wednesday, just like you are, and we appreciate your loyalty coming on the show, the comments. Ryan, Brian, all you guys, Josh, thank you so much for joining us. And as always, we're going to be here every Wednesday for your viewing pleasure at 9 a.m. sharp.
Right. And it's the peak of the week, y'all. Don't slow down, right? And we're in a freaking hot streak on these damn shows. So y'all better get ready, because the rest of the shows coming out this week in the syndicate are going to be freaking hot. I'm excited, man. And again, it's like what Ryan England was commenting on it in the comments, right? It's all about the singles sometime, going back to baseball. Man, just get on base, right? And then we'll go from there. So appreciate you, Mitch. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Like Tony said, love y'all, our loyal listeners, and your contribution to this. Hope everybody has an amazing rest of your week. We'll catch y'all later.